let's go on and talk about Uranus from one other angle. And that is the mythological angle. And some of you probably know a little mythology about Uranus. I'm going to give a story in a really broken down storyline here, or simplified storyline. And that Uranus was this god of the sky. And he met Gaia, who's the goddess of the earth. So they got together, they got married. And that's your first clue. Uranus did not marry within his own little tribe. Some other celestial being, right, as a celestial god or goddess. He went into another realm. So many times Uranus in the 7, are you going to marry the kid next door that kind of raised to the same values as yours? No. You're going to go and you're going to marry someone from New York City, came from a whole different lifestyle, different religion. That's where you're going to find your connection at. So that gives you the first clue. Uranus aligns with people other than how they were raised. They go out into the world and they find differences and they love it. But the interesting part of their story is this. When Uranus and Gaia got together, I think they had 12 kids, but the first kids that were born were the Cyclops, the Hecatoncheires, and the Titans. Well, I think we know a little bit, even if we're not, schooled well in mythology. The Cyclops were, threatening creatures. We know what they looked like. They had one eye. They were great warriors. The Hecatoncheires, which, to be honest, I don't know a lot about, except the fact that they have 50 heads and 100 arms. So again, these were fighters. They came out with weapons in their hands, and they could follow you or track you with their 50 eyes, or 50 sets of eyes. And then we had the Titans. And the Titans were, just as it sounds, gigantic people, titanic people. Well, here's where the story got interesting. Because Uranus saw, as each one of them was delivered over the course of time, and saw that they were an immediate threat to him. So he pushed the babies back into Gaia and didn't allow them to be born. So if you want to think about Gaia, Mother Earth, and he pushed them into the ground, or if you want to think of it literally, and he pushed them back into the body of Gaia, it's irrelevant. Uranus, just wasn't going to let these kids be born. Interestingly, Gaia got together with Kronos, the last child to be born, and plotted. And Gaia somehow got Kronos away, faked out something with Uranus, and she went into a pact with Kronos that he would castrate his father. And this is the great family photo that the Uranian family is known for, and that is that Kronos castrates his father. And there's a coup. The young upstart takes on the father. The young upstart takes on somebody that did something wrong. As an interesting side note, Uranus does rule abortions. So oftentimes when we see some activity in a chart, particularly with Mars, Uranus energy, we have some intervention going on in the natural order. So it's a fascinating story when you think about this. And I'm going to suggest you, anytime in your chart that Uranus hits Saturn, and we're going to be talking about this and a few other placements in your chart, you're going to find that you're involved in a coup in life, where you upset the power. There's other sides of Uranus that are also very little deviant, so to speak. And this would be, I hope from that story you could catch it. There's some deviance associated with Uranus, just with the mythology. And so look at this soccer player. He's unhappy with the referee, a call, doing some hand gestures of some sort. That's defiant behavior. Is it manageable? Well, I think at this point, most of us have come that we kind of more accept it. We might see it even in road rage. We might see it going down Rainbow Boulevard, someone doing this. But it doesn't mean it's accepted. It doesn't mean that we like it. Again, it sends a signal to most of us. If we were in a group and someone was starting to do hand gestures like that, again, what would most of us do? We would back off. Most of us would. A few of us, a few mavericks in the group would go for it, right? They might engage. So we recognize that Uranus can bring that out. Again, when it's activated in your chart, you'll attract deviant behavior or you'll engage in it. And again, I've got to be really clear here, I'm going to be very repetitive. Deviant behavior, to me, is a very broad category, very broad category. That's from talking back, sassing back. Oh, get this one. Talk to the hand. You had a kid do that to you yet? When you go to talk to them and correct them, and they put their hand out, talk to my hand, not talking to me. Very anti-social statement to make. And yet it is as well this idea I'm aloof, I'm unattached. Uranus, as well as Aquarians in general, they have a great need to be part of a group. They want so desperately to be part of a group. And yet at the same time, they feel very unattached from the group. And so therefore we get into sometimes Uranus energy gets very strongly sometimes associated with those that do horrible things that hit the headline newspapers. And particularly if they do something en masse. But they don't do it just to one person, they do it to 10 people, 20 people. Is always aligned with the planet Uranus. But there's a need to stand your power. Go back to the mythology. Kronos stood up to father, castrated him, took away his power. And we know, Kronos ended up, you want to think Saturn, went off to Rome, became Saturn. It was the Roman version of Saturn. And then he rose to power. And to be honest, and it's a very disappointing story. The same thing, a similar thing happened to him in the end by his son. So you always have to be careful about sons. They can overtake the father, but that's the world of mythology. Okay, so there's the end of the theory. I'm hoping at this point you kind of, okay, think about this. Remember, it's at a very odd angle, so we have odd-looking people, people who act differently, Uranus quality. We have people that are very engineer-like, who can think complex ideas up. Oh, great one for people who believe or subscribe to a specific conspiracy theory, or just loves conspiracy theories, period. That is a very strong Uranian energy, because they can take, okay, the first plane hit this moment, and that happened then, and this happened then, and that building didn't go down until then. So they can piece together another story as well. And be aware, this is not about whether the story is right or wrong. That is their ability to be able to take many distinct pieces of information and to pull them together and to tell an incredible storyline that even everyone else is going, whoa, is that what's really happened? What is the version of truth? So those are the theory at this point. You know a little bit more about Uranus. Now we're going to start talking about the timeline. Where is Uranus? Uranus is always in the sky, isn't it? It's always in the sky, which means it's always in your chart. Okay? It does, we classify it as staying in a sign for about 7 years. Uranus takes 84 years to go around the sun, and your chart is the circle, so it takes 84 years to get through your chart. I just listed some reference years just to establish the idea that Uranus has always been someplace. Of course, accentuated where it has been since 2009, going out through the end of 2015. We're now in late 2013. So when we go into this next section, I want you to start thinking about what's been going on and what started happening around 2009 and which has not ceased yet. It's started then and you're rolling through it. And you've still got 2014 and 2015, and then it's going to be done. Now this does not have to be one storyline that is just a 7-year saga, but it has to be a repetition of the same type of hijinks going on. Remember the word coup. Remember the word of radical change, mechanization, quick lifestyle changes occurring, and being odd or different. For those of you who are Aquarian at heart, I put in where it's going to go in 2016. For those of you who are looking ahead to the next chapter already, I would forget about what's going to happen in 2 years. Well, okay, here you are. You might you'll be able to look at the next slide following, the one that pertains to you currently, and that will give you a clue as to where you're going to go in 2016. So I'll help you with that as we go through. So let's start looking now at the Uranus energies. Again, a little more before we step into it, I guess one more review here. Uranus shows up where you're differentiating yourself, where you're going to stand out, where you're going to be different. If everyone's, the first time you showed up and you weren't dressed like everyone else, did it bother you? Or were you feeling really good about it, right? That would be a good clue about your Uranus, where it sits. You're going to break some societal or social standard. We could talk about the big things, but I want you to think locally. I want you to think about what's the standard of your family, what's the standard in the workplace. Were you the first person that wore holy jeans on casual Friday and tried to get away with it? That would be a very Uranian thing, trying to push the envelope a little bit. This is oftentimes people who succeed in very unlikely ways that we just couldn't imagine. Who would invest in Bill Gates, in the 70s or 80s, somewhere in there when he started out. Embracing independent thinking, pursuing your inventive ideas, behaviors, gravitating to new technologies. Anyone that you know that's a junkie for, the phones, for the internet, the Apple aficionados, those people are likely to have a strong Uranus because they love technology. They so can't wait for the future to get here. And then the bottom two are the dark side, but we have to mention them at least. You're identifying or alienating. Identifying with a group, or you're alienating yourself from the group. Someone who quits very abruptly, walks out the door. Someone who's really mad at the group. We could use Tea Party, for example. They're mad. So, pulling away, and I'll go back, by the way, to the symbol of Uranus. Birth, separation. We're mad, we used to be this, now we're breaking away, and we are mad, and we have separation, anxiety thing going on here. Again, that doesn't nullify, that doesn't minimize them as a powerhouse. It's just that's the process that happens. We could go back to, Martin Luther and, the Reformation. He was mad too. The Catholic Church pulled away, right? And it became a viable religion. And the worst one, of course, the one that we try to avoid is engaging in antisocial behavior, being so mad that now we're going to do something to retaliate, to let those people know. And also in all of these things we see in the headlines when people are doing something horrific, we always have that concern of why they did it, and oftentimes they feel it, they're going to make some retribution somehow, that now everyone's going to know how they felt. They want the masses to know why they did something.